everybody. How's it going? This is Ryan with Rigs of Death Metal. Today, my guest is Justin of the awesome, awesome band, 3 Inches of Blood, a longtime favorite of mine. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Ryan, and very happy to be here.
Hey, pleasure's all ours on this side here. Well, we're a very gear centric page slash channel, whatever we are. So we'll dive right into it. I know you've recently gotten a pretty sweet endorsement with Dean. Been playing some of the those like satin black, like Fishman Fluence equipped ones.
Yeah.
Let's dish about those a little bit.
Well, first of all, they're great. They're awesome guitars, and Dean, if Chris and Dean is watching, thanks for that. They're both great guitars. It's the Satin Black Dean Zero and Dean Vengeance, and I've always been a fan of Flying V's and Explorers. So yeah, they really hit the spot. They're my cup of tea as far as guitar goes. They look cool. They play and sound great. So yeah, they're kind of the perfect package.
Hell yeah. And between you and Shane, I've seen you guys play all kinds of different stuff. Um, Definitely a lot of Gibson centric or Gibson inspired stuff, though.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, like kind of ballpark feel. How would you compare the Deans with some stuff you've played in the past? Like maybe a little bit shreddier, a little bit more modern, or
Yeah, I mean they don't feel too foreign, as far as anything I'm used to. Um I got the knack for I only played with them a couple of times before we dove into those Calgary and Edmonton shows, so the feel was right on. Um but yeah, I mean they're comfortable, but you're right. For basically the most of my career as a musician, I've been playing Gibson guitars, Les Pauls, Flying V's, and I mean they're certainly not as heavy as a Les Paul. So so yeah, I mean they're comfortable, lighter. I can swing them around a little bit, and I can be a little rougher on stage with those guitars. Um, and yeah, no, they're as far as the shape goes, they're kind of what I'm already used to.
sure. Yeah, I've just kind of admiring from afar. I've been a big fan of everything Chris has been doing with Dean, kind of
Yeah.
trying to revitalize it and like get some new faces in the company and some, you know, kind of refreshing some of the existing models and things like that. It's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, I was lucky. I happened to be in Tampa right before we played Calgary and Edmonton, so I got a chance to meet Chris. I took a tour through the Dean factory, and yeah, they're all really rad dudes, and we all have the same taste in music. So um, yeah, it's been really cool working with them so far.
Awesome. And what's your go-to like amp cab rig that you're playing?
It's always been Marshall JCM 800s and matching cabs if I'm lucky. Lately we've been relying on um, we've been renting backlines for the most recent shows when we played in New York and Calgary and Edmonton and Winnipeg and in the East Coast, Montreal and Toronto. We we rent. We have a pretty easy gear list. Marshall JCM 800s. We pack our pedals, and it's never a guarantee. It's never a consistent guarantee that every rig you get's going to sound, or it's not going to sound consistent every time. You can only hope as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're pretty easy in that regard. It's always been a JCM 800 for me. And my pedals are I pack my pedals with me. It's always a Boss tuner, noise suppressor, and Ibanez 808 tube screamer just for that extra kick.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh, Boss NS2 for the noise suppressor.
Yes.
Yeah. Classic. Can't go wrong.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I a couple of years ago, I let me see. I think I started playing guitar, I don't know, around 2004, 2003, 2004, something like that. And then I just like 2, maybe 3 years ago, finally got something other than a Boss NS2. Just trying something out for like a four cable method kind of thing. But yeah, it's hard to go wrong with them. People complain about like a tone suck. I never noticed anything, but I was kind of dialed in an amp with one on, so you know.
Yeah, I know I'm somewhat haywire and can get lost in too many, cables and pedals, so I tend to
Yeah,
keep it as simple as possible.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I love diving into pedals. A lot of my friends are always showing me different pedals that they've got and yeah, I mean, it would be fun to explore those options down the road for sure.
Hell yeah. It's also at this on the flip side, it's got to be kind of a relief when you're touring. You never really know what's going to happen. So it's kind of nice to travel light. Like you've
Yeah.
got pedals that if something were to happen, you can just run to a guitar center and get the exact same thing and be good to go, you know, as
Yeah.
opposed to like, I don't know, touring with an actual like Klon Centaur or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fail safe to just keep it simple. And like you said, I can just throw whatever gear I'm traveling with in my backpack, and I don't have to worry too much about anything malfunctioning. If there's something wrong, I only have three pedals to kind of check out. I'm
Right.
not going through some map, some crazy,
Yeah,
you know, um, display of pedals. But yeah, it's been very fail safe and stress free, I guess you could say.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I see some of those like Nashville session guy boards where it's like tiers to it that you can flip up and stuff, and it's like it just looks like a troubleshooting nightmare. But
Yeah, that is a nightmare for sure.
um, kind of a nerdy Marshall question. A lot of guys really get out into the weeds on like the different variations. I know for backlines, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Do you, out of your own personal collection or years through the studios, whatever, is there a specific 800 variant that you're kind of keen to? Like people get hung up on the vertical input. Some guys like the 2210. Anything like that?
I have an early 80s JCM 800. Um, and we recently tried some of the newer ones. So
Hmm.
some of the newer ones were our most recent backline, and they sounded great. Um, we've also traveled in the past where they've been two. Yeah, we've explored different models. There's never really been a JCM 800 that struck me as a disappointment. They've all been relatively reliable, but the one I have, the 80s one, I think it's an 82 JCM 800. It sounds absolutely crushing. And if I could travel with that, I totally would.
For sure. Um, do you I'm trying to think. 82. Is it like one of the vertical input ones or horizontal? I know some people really get nitpicking, want to know that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
it's vertical.
Sweet. Okay. I've I have met guys that will turn their nose up to anything but. Like, it's a little silly to me, but I don't know. Some guys are real sticklers about that sort
You
of
got
thing.
to hand it to people who like what they like, you know?
Yeah.
They're specific.
Yeah. And to
I can
their
admire that.
sure. And to their credit, like they could name specific components like, oh, they use these transformers during this year and things like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's it's like I love gear, but that's a little bit further than I care to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm a little more laid back in that regard.
Sure.
If if I arrive in a town and there's an amp, I'll figure out a way to use it, you know?
Right. Uh, so I don't have like whole lot of history behind the band and like where you guys came from. Let's talk about like where you first got into music. Like what's your actual musical background? Because I know you shred on keys as well. Are you
Um,
classically trained or?
no, I've self-taught for the most part. We had a piano in my house. I always tinkered with it. Um, and I took on guitar when I was about 15 years old. I took a few lessons, but nothing really inspired me from the lessons that I took. I had a friend in middle school in grade 7, grade 8, and we basically wanted to start a death metal band. So it more or less was picking up a guitar and writing songs with my friend. And that's how it started for me. I yeah, and of course, with having a piano around, there was a keyboard. There was a keyboard at my school as well. There was a 4 track, and I'd been listening to a lot of symphonic death metal music, stuff like, early Cradle of Filth stuff,
Mhm.
Emperor stuff,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what really got me into playing keyboards. And I kind of it's funny, I kind of considered myself to be a keyboard player when I learned the hook for Just Can't Get Enough by Depeche Mode.
oh yeah,
That was sort of the first thing I learned, and I kind of just got into playing keyboards. I liked how full it sounded. So I've always played keyboard. I played keyboards around the same. I started playing keyboards around the same time I started playing guitar, but I took guitar a little more seriously. And when I joined 3 Inches of Blood in 2004, and we got into writing new songs, that's sort of when I threw in keyboards. That's where I put in the keyboard element in 3 Inches of Blood around the Fire Up the Blades period. And of course, like there are keyboardists that literally, for me, when I was a kid, John Lord, for example. The first time I ever heard John Lord was when I was a kid, and I I didn't even know what it was. My dad put on Highway Star for me, and I listened to the organ solo, and I was just like, holy shit, what is this? Like, this is incredible. What is this? And my dad was like, yeah, this is an organ. Like, this is the organ. And I got hooked on it after that. And yeah, that's been a game changer for me. And I love playing keyboards. I played keyboards on the most recent Ancients album, which was a lot of fun. And I won't go overboard, but I'm gonna hopefully throw some more keyboards and if there's ever some new 3 Inches of Blood music, I'll try to sneak some in there.
please,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's always been a welcome element to me. Um, that as well as lots of really sick dual guitar harmonies. Like I'm
Yes,
a sucker for both.
me too. I think a great formula is the organ solo, the keyboard solo, the organ solo, the guitar solo, and then the organ guitar solo combo, like
Oh yeah,
the dual harmonies. That is just, yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, that's a match made in heaven right there.
Just like one building off the other and just keeps
Yeah.
ramping up. Yeah, so epic. Um, so kind of touched on that. Talking about potential new 3 inches of blood. Um, hadn't heard a lot from you guys in a while. All of a sudden, boom, you're back. Uh, which obviously a welcome surprise, but you know, uh, why the time away? Why now? And what can we kind of hope to see coming out of the 3 inches of blood camp?
When we disbanded in 2015, I think a lot of us were pretty burnt out at that time. And I'm speaking only on behalf of myself, but I was burnt out. We'd been touring pretty relentlessly, and I can honestly say at that particular point I was pretty, yeah, mentally and physically exhausted. And yeah, I mean, fast forward to 9 years later, or maybe, well, let's say eight and a bit, um, I got in touch with Cam and discussed just how I missed hanging out with the guys and jamming. And Cam reached out to everyone else, and everyone had the same feeling. And we ended up meeting up and just we weren't sure how it would go, but we just sort of were like, why don't we just go into a jam space, play the songs, hang out, like see how that goes. And it was great. We loved being in the same room together. We loved playing the songs. It brought up a lot of good memories. And our initial intention was only to play one show. It was kind of like, yeah, let's just do it for fun and celebrate the back catalog and our time, our legacy, so to speak. And it really turned into something greater than that. And we were all pleasantly surprised. And we enjoyed it so much, it's really hard to stop now that we're back in it. And it's been a lot of fun. And we haven't written anything new, but we have talked about it. And I think that we will eventually put something together. We're in no rush, but we definitely are enjoying it, and we're inspired much more so than we were in 2014. So we're all really excited to see what happens. And next year's going to be a really busy year for us as well. So
Lots of touring planned for next year too.
yeah, like not relentless touring, but
Mhm.
we've got a lot of really fun shows. We just announced that we're playing Hellfest next year. We've never done that, and that's been something I've always wanted to do. I've always been really excited to play Hellfest. So I'm very, very grateful that I get that opportunity. And yeah, a couple of trips to Europe next year. Milwaukee Metal Fest, of course. That's going to be a lot of fun. So. And then we're starting the year off playing in California in January, so we're really excited for that too.
Killer.
Yeah.
Um, do you yourself, or do you know if anybody else, like during the time away, y'all written anything or had any ideas maybe that were just kind of sitting on a hard drive, anything like
Yes.
that?
So yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because that's actually sort of what got me calling Cam was I was right. We've all kind of been writing music here and there during the time off, and Ash, of course, has been incredibly busy with Revocation. But I was writing riffs that just sounded like 3 Inches of Blood riffs. And it just kind of happened that way. So yeah, I had been sort of just playing guitar, practicing and writing songs, and it just kind of it just felt like a 3 Inches of Blood song. So that was sort of what inspired me to reach out to Cam. Um, was just that. And yeah, there's ideas. We've compiled some ideas. I know Cam's got years of ideas that he's been sort of saving for this occasion. So we're all really excited to when the time comes and when the time is right, of course, we're really excited to get in the same room and see what happens, create some shit.
Oh yeah. Well, I here fairly recently, uh, maybe it was because I saw your all's posts of starting to kind of tour back up again, or maybe it was just sheer coincidence. But I've definitely been on a big 3 inches of blood kick, like the last couple months. It's why I was like, I got to get them on the show.
Hell yeah.
And I know I've shared some things through our page, like in our Instagram stories and stuff like that. And I can't tell you the amount of messages and comments of and it's mostly a death metal, extreme metal page, but as you guys have always toured right alongside with some of the heaviest bands, It doesn't matter. Metalheads of any walk seem to love 3 inches of blood. Even, everybody that's like, the flat bill hat wearing slam kids to the leather vest Cannibal Corpse dudes, like, everything in between.
That rules.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. And vice versa. We love music. We're a music loving band, and I think there's a time and place for everything. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm stoked to hear that.
Oh, absolutely. Had a couple people comment about Cam being like the greatest metal vocalist of all time,
He's
which,
up there.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
well, if do you got time for like just two more questions?
Yeah. Fire away.
Sweet. One is like a very, very nerdy gear question that I
Okay.
get flack because I forget to ask. But people want to know,
Yeah.
uh, tuning, string gauge, and guitar picks.
Okay. Green Dunlops,
Okay.
uh, uh, 10 to 52 gauge, and we do standard E tuning. We always have. I mean, I think some of the songs we've been kind of toying around with these days, we've been dropping it to drop D. But
Okay.
yeah, we've always done standard E tuning. Um, and yeah, I've 10 to 52, and then let's see if I got something kicking around. Every time I want a pick, there's never a pick, and when I don't need one, I'm tripping all over them. But yeah, the the green, tortoise
Yeah.
classic picks. Yeah, I've been using them from the very beginning, so
Can't go wrong, Will.
can't go wrong.
Awesome. And then last thing, I always tend to wrap these up with give us like your Mount Rushmore, your top four personal bands and or albums,
Okay.
whichever comes easier.
This always changes, just because
Sure.
honestly, there's so many albums and so many bands um, that have changed my life. But I think Led Zeppelin 3 may be the one that completely changed my life. Only because I literally remember every moment of first hearing the Immigrant Song. I know exactly where I was. I know exactly. It was just one of those songs where all of a sudden it was almost as if like a ray of light just shined on my face. It was a heavenly experience. Um, but that song single-handedly made me want to be a musician. That was the song. And yeah, that also introduced me to Led Zeppelin. So I'll have to say Led Zeppelin is probably the band that really influenced me the most.
Mhm.
Um, and Metallica, of course. Metallica is the gateway.
Right.
That was the next level. It kind of went from hearing Led Zeppelin, and then when I was a kid, my a friend of mine in my like elementary school years, he had an older brother who introduced me to Metallica. And I remember listening to Metallica and being absolutely blown away. That just again, that was sort of that went from I want to be a musician to I want to play heavy metal music. That was that stage. Um, so when I got into death metal music, probably one of the most inspiring album for me, one of the most inspiring death metal albums for me was a band from Florida called Assuck.
Oh,
And
the band rules.
yeah, so they put out two albums, Anti-Capital and Misery Index, and I think Misery Index for me, they're both spectacular perfect records, but Misery Index for me was the that to me was I want to play this fast and I want to play songs this short. Obviously, times have changed now, but at the time that was the most extreme album and in perfect as far as fast, relentless riffs. Um, I saw Asuk in 1998, I think, and it was again that show may have been one of the best shows I've ever seen in my entire life. I'd just seen Morbid Angel play at they were touring for Formulas Failed to the Flesh, and they played at the Starfish Room in Vancouver, which no longer exists. And I think a week later, I saw Asuk play it may have been a week later, but it was in a hall in Victoria, BC. It was in a hall, and it wasn't full by any means, but there was just a circle of fans and all kids and the like just surrounding Asuk, and they just went through song after song after song after song. I think they played less than 30 minutes, but it was just one punch in the face after the next, and it just had me sort of thinking like, wow, every show should be like this. It was mind blowing. So I would have to say Asuk Misery Index would have to be in there as well. And did
Oh
you
yeah.
say four albums or five?
Like yeah, four, but if you
Okay.
got five, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll yeah, so I guess one of the black metal albums that really I would say what got me into a more the more sort of um darker vibe like as far as black metal goes. I think this is tied for fourth, but I think Absu's debut album and Impaled Nazarene's debut album. Those two albums were so fucking awesome. And those albums, again, to me, were just like so far out. They were so new to me, and especially Absu. I thought their lyrics were just spectacular. It's so dark and it's so like it's just so uh esoteric, and in Pale Nazarenes is again just so fast and brutal, but it's so off the wall. And those
Catchy in a
albums,
weird way, almost.
yeah, like it's bizarre. It's a bizarre album, and I know those two were kind of gateway albums to um, further discovering black metal stuff. But those two albums I hold in high regard just because they really captivated me. They were just so inspiring. And I guess I'll have to. I think for the last one would be when I joined 3 Inches of Blood. I really got into I really got into classic rock that I'd never discovered before, and um and it's kind of hard to say what album, but for me UFO,
Oh yeah.
and UFO would be like Force It probably would be probably the most inspiring to me, or um I the live one, I think it's Strangers in the Night. I'm not 100% sure. It's just,
Yeah.
but the Force It to me was so inspiring, and that was a huge go-to band for for writing 3 Inches of Blood music. It might not be um something you hear when you listen to it, but that was one of those bands where if I was writing a 3 Inches of Blood song and I was stuck or lost in some sort of way, I would kind of be like, "Well, what would UFO do?"
Hmm.
And I would listen to UFO and just be like, "Okay, that sounds rad. I'm gonna do that." So that yeah. So there you go. And again, like this is gonna change the next time we talk. So, but that's just sort of like a basic one of kind of like from where to where. But I love music, and I'd be more than happy to chat my ear off about how much I love ABBA and Casey and the Sunshine Band, but we'll save that for another time.
Hey, that shit's great too. I grew up,
Yeah.
my dad had a pretty sick vinyl collection, and both of those were in it.
Yeah, I have an Abba tattoo on my leg.
Nice.
I'm of Swedish descent, and I thought, what a better there's no better way to honor that than by getting an Abba tattoo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, dude, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. This has been great. Love getting a little bit of insight into some of my favorite bands. It's kind of the real reason why I started doing this show. But yeah, anything you want to plug real quick before we hop off here? I know we kind of mentioned
Um,
the shows coming up next
yeah,
year.
okay. Um, Now that I have your attention, 3 Inches of Blood is playing in January in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all that shit for more details, as well as festivals in the summertime, Milwaukee Metal Fest, Hellfest, and yeah, there's lots of other stuff going on. So yeah, you know what to do.
Yeah. And hopefully, maybe sometime in the next year, we get some news on some new 3 inches of blood.
Well, if we do, you'll be the first to hear about it.
Sick. You heard it here, folks. All
Yeah.
right. Justin, thank you again, man. And
Yeah, thanks.
yeah,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on your show, and it's been great talking to you.
absolutely. Again, pleasure's all over here. Thank
Cool.
you. Thank you, everybody at home, for watching, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Take care.